What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today is the companion piece with my updated 2024 NFL Draft position rankings. Yesterday we did offense, today we're doing defense, and real quick before we get started, I just want to ask the same question, just in case maybe you didn't see yesterday's video, which, by the way, definitely go check that out if you want to hear me talk about quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends, all that sort of fun stuff. But typically I've done these where each position group, even on the updated version, gets its own video. Let me know if you prefer that. Do you want me to go more in depth on these edge guys, give you a top 10 at interior defensive linemen, or is this kind of more your speed, where it's just like, hey, give me a top 5. Maybe the next time we do this, we'll do top 10 just because we're going to be that deep in the process. Just kind of give me your quick hitting thoughts, who stands out, who's the best guy, who's a sleeper at each position group, and let's make this a shorter video. And I only need 2 videos instead of 12, basically. I don't need an individual video for interior offensive line versus, just an offensive updated position rankings. Let me know what you guys think. I'd really love to know what your opinion on that is. So, we start with edge. I've decided to put Jared Verse back at 1. The last 6 games that he played at Florida State were just killer. And look, controversial opinion potentially here. I think the college football playoff made the right decision. Florida State's not the same team without Jordan Travis. I get it. They still won the games without him. And if I'm really honest, if there was a team to get over Alabama, this is going to really piss people off. It should have been Georgia. Georgia had won 29 consecutive games, back-to-back national champions. And if Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey are at 100%, I think they beat Bama in that game. And again, controversial opinion. So, let me know what you think. But really, what should have been done, and this was in the hurry up offense, we talked about this, the college football playoff should have authorized an emergency expansion of the college football playoff, had those last, the 5 and 6 seed get in, just add that as a part of the college football playoff, and just gotten free brownie points from all college football fans, because that would have been just the freest win. And they would have been able to find and work out all the details. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, you don't know about venues, you don't know about this. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Trust me, money will make it all work. That would not have been a concern for me whatsoever. So they pass up on free brownie points because that Jared Verse goes back to school, becomes an absolute machine the last 6 weeks of the year. 5 of his last 6 games, he had a pass rush win rate north of 25%, which is bananas. You see the speed, you see the power, you see the hands. There we go. That's the Jared Verse I thought was going to be the best defensive player potentially in the country this year. And it just took a little bit out of the gate before he got there. And I think maybe he dropped a little weight. I think he got up to 255 when I think 245 was probably the right weight. I think the end of the year probably closer to 250. Really excited to see what that number is at once we get to the combine. But to me, full prospect from a pass rush and a run defense standpoint. Love me some Jared Verse. Finally saw him ticket into that next gear. Wish we could have seen him since he did go back to school playing the college football playoff. But hey, it is what it is. College football playoff, wanted to keep it to 4 for whatever reason. Latu comes in at 2. I mean, may not be the most juiced up athlete, but I think there's enough there to play at the next level. More than enough to play at the next level. He's just kind of a B level athlete instead of A or A+. And just totally refined. Can attack outside shoulder, inside shoulder, multiple counters. If the first move loses, he's continuing to play. High motor guy, go on to the next move, on to the next one. There's just not much in his game that I can hate. This comes down to the medical. The only thing I can nitpick about his game is he's not an A+ athlete, which how many A+ athletes are there? And then obviously this guy has medically retired before, which Jalen Phillips has looked okay, hasn't been an issue. So the last guy to do this, and we had this talking point about, was my edge 1, and he's played like a Pro Bowl guy when he's been healthy. So that's gonna be the concern. He's not gonna be on everybody's draft board because of that. But to me, we got to see him do it the last 2 years, stay healthy, and he's been an absolute freak show. And the production is just redonkulous. So I would love to see a team take the chance on him. Hopefully he stays healthy, because I think he's going to hit the ground running. I think this is going to be a guy that year 1, it's kind of bold to say this, but I can see him flirting with 10 sacks year 1. And I feel mostly confident in saying that. Then we get to Dallas Turner. Been really impressed with how he's been able to add a little bit more weight, and he's added some more inside counters. He went from this guy that was just a supreme athlete and can win attacking the outside shoulder to where, okay, now tackles know I'm going to do that. How can I counter it? And he's added some of those counters. Still a little bit work to be done there, but he's taken this step, and he's taking the initiative, and he's starting to get there. So I think at the next level, I can even see rookie year where he adds even more to that, and then by year 2, this guy is as productive as there is really in this draft class, at least in the edge group. So I think he's a really good player now. Could be an instant impact guy. And I think by year 2, he could be a really special player. And I feel that about all 3 of these guys. I love Verse, Latu, and I've really come around on Dallas Turner. Really starting to see what potential is there. It just may take a little bit longer than I think Verse and Latu will. Chop Robinson, freaky athlete, really solid run defender at 250 pounds too, but he just needs to be taught how to play, I don't want to say play the position, but he needs to be just taught more in regards to pass rush moves, playing a game of chess with the opposing offensive lineman. If this move fails, what can I counter to then next, or how do I keep the battle going? All that sort of stuff. But that's what makes it like, hey, by the end of his rookie contract, if he's got like an arsenal of moves that he's really comfortable with and can kind of go to without thinking about it, with that athleticism, like he could have an Odafe Owe breakout, which is, lazy scouting, both Penn State guys, but Odafe Owe finally had that breakout year, and it just felt like the same thing. Awesome athlete, just needs to figure out how to win the battle. He just needs to be a better pass rusher. He needs to be more technically sound. And if that happens to Chop Robinson, my God, this guy is going to be an absolute tank. I love me some Chop Robinson. Think he's totally a first-round guy. And then Braylon Trice, like the rest of the edge guys, I always have a problem with at least one thing. Like Jonah Ellis, insane production, but 6'2", 245. He feels a little undersized, and we'll see what his official weight comes in at. There'll probably be some water weight in there, but that will give us, and the arm length really. Like 6'2" is fine if the arm length checks, but if he has short arms, then that might be a bit of an issue. And a few other guys where it's like, yeah, I like his game, but I don't love it. And that's kind of how I feel about Braylon Trice. It's kind of late first, early second. I'm okay with it. Speed to power guy, and that's about what it is. It is what it is. And he's a solid run defender for sure. But he's also played in a lot of big games, and he shows up in big moments. So that's kind of what's won me over when, I'm iffy about everyone else who should be 5. I'm like, man, Braylon Trice has played in a lot of big games. And it feels like every big moment, number 8's making a play. Like, it's crazy how often he does show up in those big moments. So he may be a speed to power guy only, but there's plenty of teams who would benefit from that. Like Carolina, Atlanta, these teams that, Atlanta kind of has it maybe with Bud Dupree now, but like Carolina, who's the speed to power guy? Nobody, because they got Burns, who's the finesse guy, and then they don't have that power element. So for the right team, it makes sense to take a shot on him in the first round. Or like the Jags, like pairing him up with Josh Allen. I love that fit, actually. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Get that power in the room and just an added element to the pass rush component that you don't have as a team. So you could still in a world where speed of power is all you need, depending on who else you have on the roster. So because of that, he does come in at number 5. Interior defensive lineman, Jason Newton, I think might have, taking quarterbacks out of this just because QB floors are so hard to evaluate, Jason Newton might have the highest floor of anybody in this class. Yeah, I have to think about it. Him and Joe Alt probably have the highest floors in this class. Like, I can't see those guys not being good. Rome Odunze's up there. Oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. too. So there's a few different guys. Of the defensive players, I think Johnny Newton comfortably highest floor of anybody in this class. Just gets it. Fires off the line of scrimmage. Great with his hands. Doesn't let opposing offensive linemen get their hands on him. And has the burst out of his stance to where like impact pass rusher as well. And he just gets it from a run stopping standpoint. Just like may not have like all-pro, future Hall of Famer type of ceiling, but at the same time, like, if he's this good now and gets it, like, there's room to think that he's going to continue to learn and get better. So, like, I don't want to count that out either, but like I said, one of the highest floors, if not the highest floor on the defensive side in this class. Devondre Sweat's a guy I've come around on a lot, and it's funny, you get Byron Murphy and him, both these Texas IDLs on here, and one's 6'1", 308 pounds, and that's Byron Murphy, and then the other 6'4", 360. It's like you couldn't find two more different interior defensive linemen, but that's how they play. Devondre Sweat's your two-gapping, nose run defending specialist, but he's also shown a lot of pass rush juice this year, and he won the award for best interior defensive lineman this year because of that. Like, he wasn't just a run stopper, he had the pass rush juice. So because of that, he's moved all the way up to 2, because there's just not a whole lot of great pass rushing nose tackles outside of really Dexter Lawrence, and then you have a game or two where Vita Vea looks like a beast, but other than like Dexter Lawrence and then like Kenny Clark a few years ago, like not a whole lot of great pass rushing nose tackles. I think Devondre Sweat could be the next guy that comes along, and I'm not saying he's gonna be as good as Dexter Lawrence, but you see the impact that has on the Giants defense. Even if they're not great this year, like look at the playoff game against the Vikings last year. Kirk Cousins throws the ball 4th and 8 short of the sticks because Dexter Lawrence is about to eat him alive. So could Devondre Sweat play a similar role and maybe be as close to Dexter Lawrence as we have in the league right now? I think he can. Then we get to Leonard Taylor, just a true, like, this guy has all the tools. Like, this guy easily could have the highest ceiling of anybody in this IDL class, without a doubt. 6'5", close to 310 pounds, and like almost always wins with his athleticism and that size and the arm length. Like, true specimen. It's just kind of like Chop Robinson just needs to learn the pass rush game. He needs to learn how to play chess with an imposing interior offensive lineman. And if he does that, this guy is easily the best interior defensive line because he just has traits that the other guys may have, but he hasn't to another level. Like, this guy's twitchy beyond twitchy. So he just needs to become more refined. And if he does that, scary player. So I think Newton and Sweat should go round 1. And I think Taylor could sneak in late round 1. Like, I could see a team like Kansas City just taking a flyer on him. Or, I don't think Philadelphia would add another interior defensive lineman, but something like that where it's like, we don't need you to be great right away. Let's just have you kind of waiting the wings. And then by year 2, 3 of your rookie contract, you're going to be our guy. Like, I could totally see that. That's where Kansas City, I think, makes some sense. And we'll see how the draft order plays out. I could see D'Amico Ryans working his magic with that. The Texans landing spot makes a lot of sense to me. I've mocked that a ton here on this channel, so would love to see that landing spot for him. And then Byron Murphy, kind of not necessarily the opposite of Sweat, but solid run defender, but does it more so by shooting into gaps and getting between interior offensive linemen. And then he's just got a lot of pass rush juice, and he's more akin to Johnny Newton than maybe Devondre Sweat, where the hand usage is a little bit better than Sweat. And because he fires off the line of scrimmage and he's only 308 pounds, he is just a little bit quicker and just get to interior offensive linemen before they're out of their stance, kind of like Kalijah Kancey last year. Not saying that he is Kalijah Kancey and he's going to go 19th overall, but kind of that same mold versus 360-pound Devondre Sweat, who is a little bit more Mozzie Smith maybe. Just using some examples from last year. These guys are very different players for sure, but just kind of giving you a basic guideline just in case maybe you're new to this class. Then we get to Chris Jenkins. Unfortunately, he didn't take a step forward this year as a pass rusher. I was kind of holding out hope that he'll go from not much there to okay, there's a little something there. And he's not a great pass rusher. But his dad was an awesome run defender. And Jenkins may not have the size that his dad did, but dude, he gets it. I don't know what it is, but his dad coached him up perfectly. This man is a machine against the run. And I think he finished the year as the highest graded run defender of any Big Ten interior defensive lineman. And he does it at under 300 pounds. It's bananas how he does it. But yeah, just getting into gaps and just anticipation and just reading offensive linemen, seeing where the ball is going to go. The dude gets it from there. But because there's no pass rush upside, no perceived pass rush upside at this moment, he's not going to go round one, unfortunately. But if a team like, a Seattle or Miami, it's just hey, we need one guy to be that run-stopping specialist around everything else we have going on, I think the second round makes sense. And definitely in the third round, I think I would pull the trigger on that. On to the off-ball linebackers. I'm going to go Edgerrin Cooper. It's not a great off-ball linebacker class, other than Peyton Wilson. Honestly, if I were to say who's the best right now, Peyton Wilson's the guy. Peyton Wilson's the best linebacker right now in this class. Edgerrin Cooper's just got the size, the arm length, and athleticism, and we've seen year-over-year growth at A&M to where I'm okay, the next level, maybe it's not year one, maybe it is year two. I could see where he has that Devin Lloyd struggled rookie year, but learns a lot of valuable lessons along the way, and then takes those traits, and because he's kind of learned the game a little bit more, and he's gotten more comfortable in his role in the defense, year two is when he breaks out. I could totally see that. And kind of has that Tremaine Edmonds build. You're going to hear a lot of that throughout the draft cycle. And when he gets through the combine, I bet the numbers are going to be relatively similar, and his mock draftable comp is probably going to be Tremaine Edmonds. And we saw it take him a little bit of time, but he was also drafted at 19. Cooper's not going to quite have that, so hopefully he's a little bit further along and be a little bit quicker of an instant impact player. Peyton Wilson won, the Linebacker of the Year award for college football this year, and rightfully so, man. And he finally stayed healthy. That's the thing, though. He's only got pretty much the 1 year of being healthy. This guy's gone through some major injuries in his past, and almost kind of serves as the Michael Penix of the defensive side of the ball, where it's he may be an awesome player, but layout to altitude is kind of the same thing. But he's medically retired. It's a little different. Penix hasn't. But it's just man, the damage done to especially his lower body, it's will a team take a chance on him? But I think it's a chance that could really pay off. And because of that, he may slip a little bit. And if Dallas looks at him in round two and they're this guy is going to be our Leighton Vander Esch replacement, or he's going to be the running mate with, honestly, they're probably moving on. It's probably going to be Marquise Bell and whoever they maybe add in free agency this year, or they bring back LVE. I could see them prioritizing a Peyton Wilson and be yep, that's the guy. Or even a Philadelphia Eagles, where it's dude, this guy was the best linebacker in the country, and we can just draft him just because he fell in this class because of injuries. But if he stays healthy, he's easily the best guy we got. I could totally see that world. So love his game. Awesome attacking downfield. Good enough coverage player. Love the athleticism. It's just going to come down to medical. That's the only thing that's holding him back from spot one too. Just because we only got 1 year of health. And that to me is tough. Barrett Carter. It was my preseason off-ball linebacker one. I don't think he did anything necessarily to fall. I don't think this is his fault. It's just Cooper and Wilson. I think they've become more on my radar, and they've earned the opportunity to be 1 and 2. It's nothing bad about Carter. Twitchy athlete, great attacking downfield, can be used as a blitzer. Probably still some growing pains in the coverage aspect, but I think by the end of his rookie contract, he'd become a solid player. He has those traits, and again, the athleticism to be a good player there. And just to kind of shorthand, how I look at linebackers, you have your downhill guys and you got your backpedal guys. That's kind of how I describe it. Downhill guys, we'll come back to this at 5 with Cedric Gray too. I think Barrett Carter's probably a little bit more of a downhill guy than he is a backpedal guy, but I think with some time he could become a really nice balance between those two. And because of that, he might become a really nice value for someone on day 2. And then Junior Colson, not necessarily an athletic freak, not the most twitchy guy in this group, but honestly, of these 5 guys, he's probably the least twitched up. But just gets the position. 3-year starter at Michigan. Are you kidding me? He's been starting since he was a true freshman during this insane run that Michigan's beaten Ohio State 3 straight years. They've been one of the best powerhouses in college football, and he's kind of been the center of that defense. And they're gonna have a lot of players get drafted off that defense this year as well as next year. So, yeah, big fan of Junior Colson's game. He just does a lot of the little things right. And he's a great downhill linebacker. And because of his athleticism, maybe coverage is going to be a bit of a limitation. But we said the same thing about Jack Campbell last year, which that's been true so far in the NFL. But he ended up posting enough, good enough numbers at the combine to where it's a little less of a concern. I think he'll get there with some time. So I want to see what the numbers come in at Colson before I jump to conclusions here. And then we get to Cedric Gray. So let me just kind of put a little peek behind the curtain in here. This was going to be Danny Stutzman / Cedric Gray, and basically this was going to lead me into how I shorthand describe linebackers, downhill or backpedal guys. Danny Stutzman would have been like my downhill 5. Like he would have been 5 if you're looking for a downhill linebacker. The guy's awesome against the run and filling lanes. He's an awesome tackler. And he's just kind of got that swagger about him too, where it's just like, dude, I'm going to hit you in the mouth and I'm going to love every second of it. And downhill linebacker type of energy. And then you have Cedric Gray, who run defense is probably the weakest part of his game. But awesome athlete and a really nice feel for zone coverage to where, like, if you play a whole lot of zone or you're in a division with one of these Shanahan-McVay trees that are attacking the middle of the field, like I could see where you look at Cedric Gray and you're like, that's the guy that helps us slow down that offense because he has that good feel for over the middle of the field and plenty of athleticism to be able to recover if there's a check down and go get the ball carrier, or just keep up with linebackers, tight ends, keep up with slot receivers depending on what coverage you're in over the middle of the field. So big fan of Cedric Gray. But again, if Danny Stutzman did not announce that he was going back to OU, this was going to be Stutzman / Cedric Gray. And it just comes down to, do you want the downhill guy or do you want the backpedal guy in Cedric Gray? But with Stutzman announcing he's going back to school, Cedric Gray grabs the number 5 spot. We get to corner. Nate Wiggins is my number 1 guy, man. And I think my bias comes from he still has room to grow, for sure. Don't get me wrong, but I love guys that like year 1 to year 2. Okay, there's some growth. Year 2 to year 3. Okay, we're getting even better. And that's just where I'm at with Nate Wiggins. So at this point, I'm bought in. Like I see the developmental curve going on the upswing, and I think at the next level with even better coaching and even more resources at his disposal, and let's be honest, he doesn't have to worry about going to class. I think it's that much better. Has awesome ball skills, ideal size, 6'2", 200 pounds, really good hands. And, I go back to this all the time. Him chasing down Amari and Hampton, which, again, big reason why I'm excited for the 2024 running back class. I kind of held that in yesterday's video. Him catching Hampton, 1, impressive as is. Like, straight line speed, oh my God, that's crazy. But to not give up on the play and punch it out the 1 yard line, like, that's the little stuff. That's the little things that, like, tackling shouldn't be need make or break for a corner, but at this point, we're kind of getting there. Where it's like, a play like that moves the needle enough to where you're 1 over another guy who's going to end up being 2 for some boards. I think that's truly the case. Not necessarily the case with my board, but with my rankings here. But I can totally see where that moves the needle enough to make enough of a difference. So where you have Nate Wiggins, who's getting a little bit better, and it's like an athletic specimen and great hustle. Then you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who kind of like Junior Colson, maybe not anything splashy, athletically. And like Kool-Aid McKinstry, if I had to guess his 40 time, probably like 4.52. Like I'd probably put it around there. But awesome arm length, size, 3-year starter because he's technically refined. Like Nick Saban has just been like, yeah, since he was 18, like, yeah, you're starting for me. And I will say, I think Nate Wiggins, he's played man, he's played zone, so he's got both experience playing press and off coverage. But Kool-Aid McKinstry is the best press corner in this class. And just like J.C. Horn going above Patrick Surtain, sometimes that man press ability is the trump card. So it could be the same thing here with Kool-Aid McKinstry going ahead of a Nate Wiggins, going ahead of Kamari Lassiter, going ahead of a Cooper DeJean, who we're going to talk about in the next slide. So don't worry, I'm not leaving him off my corner rankings. I just do it a little differently there. I could see where he kind of is the J.C. Horn of this class, where it's like, that's the best man press guy. That's a skill set that's really hard to teach. So we'll fill in the rest of the blanks. He could do that, and we want that. So big fan of Kool-Aid McKinstry. I just don't think he has quite the upside, maybe because of the athletic limitations that someone like a Nate Wiggins has. Kamari Lassiter, Denzel Burke, I kind of grouped these guys in very similar because they were both preseason honorable mentions for me because I saw the size, I saw the athleticism, I saw the arm length. I'm like, these guys should be awesome. These guys should be great. And this year was the year they proved it. Denzel Burke missed some time, but when he was on the field, man, he was shut down. Like, he was the guy on the outside for Ohio State. And Kamari Lassiter, like, yeah, Georgia's defense was still good, but that front seven wasn't what it was 2021, 2022. Like, the reason Georgia's defense was more on Lassiter's shoulders this year than it ever has been. And he's been a shutdown guy for that defense. So really, really impressed with these guys. And with their frames, Lassiter's a little bit bigger, so that's kind of why I gave him the nudge here. I think both these guys can be really solid man press guys, but also have enough movement skills and fluidity to where, like, if you're playing zone, that's totally fine. And hey, let's just be honest. The Cleveland Browns run more man coverage than anybody else in the league, and I think it's at like 40%. The team that runs the most man coverage in the NFL right now is 60-40 zone. So, like, we're going to need that. So, but I do think these guys, and, like, gotta have it, need to stop man coverage situations, can hold up their own and be really solid additions. And same thing with Quinyon Mitchell. This guy's ball skills are crazy. Like the amount of PBUs that he's racked up the last 2 years are hard to ignore. And 6'2", 200 pounds, freaky arm length, and just probably a little bit more power than anybody else on this list right now. Like going and getting guys at the line of scrimmage, him and Kool-Aid McKinstry, you know, that press punch, like, man, I do not want to be on the other end of that. Does come from a smaller school, so that does hold him back from, you know, behind guys that play at Clemson, Alabama, like Georgia and Ohio State. To me, that does matter because quarterback play is a big determining factor to what I expect out of corners. And same thing with receiver play. Like, has he really been tested as much? Not as much as a Wiggins, McKinstry, Lassiter, and Burke. So, but still a big fan of his game. Think he should be a first-round guy, and he's just kind of that physical corner. Maybe if you're missing one, I think Quinyon Mitchell's a really solid add. In my last mock, I sent him to the Colts, and I think him and Juju Brents, two big corners, but one with more change of direction skills, one with more arm length and kind of power to his game. I think that'd be a really nice compliment and a good landing spot for Mitchell. All right, let's get on to slot. I've added this into my position groups because I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. You can check the channel. I think slot's going to end up being the most important position in the secondary in about 5 years, and depending on where you stand on coverage versus pass rush, maybe the most important position on a defense. So check that video out if you haven't already. I didn't even talk about Cooper DeJean in that. I just want my most athletic, my best playmakers closer to the football. Like I want Brian Branch as close to football as I can. I want Trent McDuffie as close to football as I can. Devon Witherspoon, CJ Gardner-Johnson. I want all those guys close to the football. I want Jaquan McMillan making plays, being close to the football, punching it out, forcing fumbles, jumping over screens, and all that sort of stuff, but also having the ability to cover deep down the field. And that's where we get to Cooper DeJean because he's 6'1", 207 pounds, an absolute freaky athlete who's had success basketball, track, football, obviously, baseball. Like the guy's just anything he does, he's pretty damn good at. One of those guys, I hate those types because I struggle with everything I do. But then I get to the idea where it's like, yeah, he's played a lot of corner for Iowa, and they've done a little bit of moving him inside, and even had some stuff where he's played a little, hybrid safety linebacker, and that's cool because he can do that. But he's a great tackler and a willing one at that, and a hard hitter. And I just think about his athleticism lined up a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage and where the football is, and think about using him as a blitzer. Having him being an active part of your run game, especially if you're a too high defense and you have that second safety up over the top. Like his additional run defense plays a huge factor in why I think he should go round one and why he should play that position. And it helps even out the numbers. Yes, you have one less person in the box, but DeJean makes up for that. So big fan of his game, and you take his coverage ability from the outside and move it inside, take away those easy throws between the hashes, up the seam, all that sort of stuff, make quarterbacks win on the outside. Like, that's just a valuable ad. Now I'm getting in my slot video all over again, but man, I'd love to see DeJean play on the inside. The only thing holding him back from maybe playing this and maybe instead just moving to safety, I'm really curious to see what the 3-cone is. Like, he's a crazy athlete, but the feet sometimes feel a little heavy. And maybe that's just what Iowa's had him do. Like, maybe that's just the outside. I don't know. But I want to see the 3-cone. I want to see what the change of direction skills are at. Terrion Arnold, this dude is an absolute freak. This guy should go round one. I had somebody on my mock because he didn't go round one, like telling me I'm an idiot and I don't watch anything. Like, okay. Interesting take there. I love Terrion Arnold. I just think he's going to be slot only. I think he's a little small right now. I think Bama lists him at like 6', 195. I think he's a little bit smaller than that. But we'll see. Once we get the official measurements and specifically the arm length, we'll find out. And look, like I said, I think slot's become the most important position in the secondary. So, like, this is kind of where I want my best corner anyways, in my opinion. And Terrion Arnold this year, he's basically the complete opposite of Kool-Aid McKinstry. He doesn't have the size and the arm length, but change of direction, it's right there with Kalen King for the best, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like, this guy is absolutely twitchy there. Click and close ability too, crazy. That pick he had against, I think it was Florida, was bananas, and that's click and close. Yeah, I love a lot of what's here. And maybe the only thing that's holding him out of the slot is like, doesn't get challenged a whole lot in the run game. So is he a willing tackler? Does he want to do that? That'll be another component that comes down to it. Maybe he does move outside if he's not really feeling that. And then we get Kalen King. Struggled a lot this year, but I think especially if you move him inside with that change of direction skills. And the reason I mentioned that, again, we're kind of getting in the slot video here, is like, if you're playing on the outside, like let's say you're playing outside right, I know you're not going to the right because the sideline's there. The slot, Pandora's box. Like, you can go left, right, up the field. You can just sit back, catch a bubble screen, whatever. So because of that, like, change of direction skill to me is a little bit more important, and Arnold can handle a guy who's going left or right against him. Kalen King can do that. And to me, these guys are the most twitchy, like, lateral movement, change of direction guys in the cornerback room / slot room. So I think this was a bit of a down year. Wouldn't shock me necessarily if he goes back to Penn State, but just leave. Just go get your money and get to the NFL level and get some coaching, and then try to earn a bag with your second contract, I think, is the move here. And you go back to his 2022-23 tape, I think there's still a lot to be excited about. And corner is a position that comes with so much variance that if you show me you can do it, I buy into it. If I'm honest, like I buy into it. I think it's real. It's a tough position to be good at multiple years in a row. It really is. And even the best, like a Darrelle Revis, there were varying years of awesome, but there were still variants there. So I don't want to hold it too much against Kalen King. He did get pushed around, did get bodied a little bit this year. Wasn't his best season for sure. But I think moving him in the slot might be a better role for him. He'll see less of those big receivers. And then you're really maximizing his change of direction skills. All right, then we get to Javon Bullard. Awesome tackler, great blitzer, and even played a little bit of safety at times at Georgia. To me, he's probably the closest thing to a Brian Branch slot, strong safety hybrid in this class, and just so sound. Now, if this guy goes above and beyond the combine, he probably moves up and above Kalen King, but I don't think he'll be an athlete, like a combine warrior. I just think he gets it from a technical standpoint. Great in coverage as well. So we'll take away a lot of those easy throws over the middle of the field. Just like an NFL-ready guy. Just technically gets it. And then Mike Sainristil. Man, he is poor man's Devon Witherspoon. I'll say it. Like, every time I watch Michigan, I'm like, dude, this guy he plays with that same tenacity. It's like, dude, you're 5'11", 180, and you're just like picking dudes up off the ground and speared them to the floor. Like, come on. Like, how awesome is that? So, big fan of Mike Sainristil. And also absolute glue in coverage. Like, this guy sticks to people like it is his job, but he sticks to people. And also has enough change of direction skills where, again, I think the slot is a really nice place to put a guy like that. But again, also like 5'11", 180-ish. Don't necessarily want him lining up outside against someone like an A.J. Brown, someone like that. So keep him on the inside, give him some more favorable matchups in regards to weight and speed. And man, like I said, poor man's Devon Witherspoon, because I love how he plays the run and how much tenacity he has and how hard of a hitter he wants to be. Let's go on the safeties and let's round this video out. Cam Kinchin's my number one. Maybe he's doing a little too much from, sometimes at Miami, and because of that, he gives up some big plays. But I think at the NFL level, you can coach him out of that and just let him play a role, and he's just going to be an awesome over-the-top free safety. But he's also been fantastic defending out of the slot. He could also come downhill. He's a great tackler. He could play some box safety. He kind of gives me Mika Fitzpatrick vibes. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Mika Fitzpatrick, but like Mika coming out of Bama, it's like you play him in the slot, he's going to be awesome. You play him at free safety, he's going to be awesome. You play him at strong safety, he's going to be awesome. And we're at this point in the league where it's like you don't really have free and strong. You need guys to be able to do both. So to me, Cam Kinchin slam dunk here. And Tyler Nubin, I don't know if he'd really fly as like the old school strong safety, but as a true center fielder, he is fantastic. And then as that last line of defense, when the ball gets to him and he needs to make the tackle or it's a touchdown, he's good there. I just don't know if he's necessarily going to crash downhill and lay the wood on a 2-yard gain. It's more so the play comes to him and he's a sure enough tackler to kind of end it there. But that being said, if, like a Gus Bradley cover 3 defense, like this guy's your center fielder, awesome fit there. Awesome fit. Or even as a split safety set, like if a quarterback has a tendency to throw to one side of the field in specific, like I want that guy on that side of the field, just great instincts to find the ball in the air and playing it once it's there and, juggling over receivers too, like body positioning, stacking receivers. And it's tough to do from a safety standpoint because you're kind of inserting yourself into the play as it's going. So just love his ball skills in general, man. And a good enough tackler to be that last line of defense. Then Rod Moore, just a guy that probably more of a strong safety than an old school free safety, but can do a little bit of that. Want to see what the combine numbers there are. And I will be clear, like the top 2 guys to me should go top 40 in the draft. Everything else after this, I'm not really too impressed with. Like I don't love anybody after this. Rod Moore, though, solid, consistent, stable, may not be anything splashy or flashy from an athletic standpoint, but just gets the position and plays, with his head a lot. Like just a smart football player and always in the right place at the right time. Like that's Rod Moore to me. And then Kalen Pollock's almost the opposite of that, where like almost like Tyler Nubin, great over-the-top playmaker, has great instincts, can go make a play on a ball from the other side of the field, man. He's just kind of twitchy there when it comes to playing center field. But unlike Nubin, where like last line of defense, ball comes your way, you need to make this tackle or it's 6. Bullock's tackling still continues to be an issue. Maybe it's a little better this year. At least at the beginning of the season, it felt like, okay, he's a little more consistent. By the end of the year, I was like, okay, same old Kalen Bullock. So because of that, I don't know, man. Like I just don't know. Like it's a boom bust. It almost feels like the Jameis Winston of safeties, where it's just like, I love the idea of the upside there, right? Like I'd love to have this guy just making plays week in and week out on deep passing. But at the same time, like not even just running backs, like a tight end comes his way up the seam. Like, can I really trust this guy to bring him down? And right now, the answer for me is no. And then we get James Williams, this former 5-star recruit, and I love big safeties. Like 6'5" at safety position is like an automatic. Like I'm intrigued. Like you're already relatively high on my watch list, And he obviously hasn't been the better of the two Miami safeties. They both came out in the same recruiting class. Kinchins was a 3-star guy. Williams was a 5-star guy, so it's kind of ironic that NFL draft time they've kind of switched. But I think there's still enough there. And Williams has gotten better year over year, and maybe more as a box safety. And with that arm length, man, I could see him being kind of poor man Kyle Hamilton, like using him in that same role that the Ravens have, where he's, Hamilton played a lot of slot last year. He's done some of that this year. He's their tight end eraser. He's playing a little bit more box strong safety. If you use Williams in that role, it's a really interesting addition. So if you play in a division like the NFC West and you're like, damn, how am I going to take away George Kittle this week? Or, depending on what happens to Travis Kelce, if you're in the AFC West and you're like, we need a Kelce remover. Like, if you're looking for a guy like that, James Williams is a really interesting guy to play that exact role. Don't know if he has enough to be the over-the-top free safety type, but kind of tight end eraser, strong safety. I think it's a good spot for James Williams. And, more Bullock and Williams, probably round 3 is where we start thinking about maybe these guys come off the board. I don't know. Bullock's, I could see a team falling in love with what the upside's there. So maybe he goes a little bit earlier than that. But for me, I think the 3rd to 4th rounds where I start looking at these guys and being like, okay, I like the value here. But guys, that's going to do it for my updated defensive position rankings. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who's your favorite of these prospects? And maybe who's an under the radar guy that I didn't include in this list? Love to know your thoughts. If you have any sleepers there for me, I'll be sure to check them out. And of course, let me know also, would you prefer to have a video for each position group, or is this more your speed where it's just like, hey, let's just get a quick overview of each position group, who's changed from your preseason rankings to where we are now? If that's your speed, cool. Love to hear it. So just let me know down below in the comments section. But hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I'm signing off.